I assumed it was just another business trip as I left my husband off at the airport. My 6-year-old son, however, tightened his grip on my hand as I was ready to leave and said, "Mama, don't go back home. I heard my father plotting something terrible against us this morning. This time, please believe me." We hid when I trusted him, and I became terrified at what I saw next. Before we go any further, however, please ensure that you have subscribed to the channel and mention in the comments where you are seeing this video. We enjoy seeing how many people are reading our stories. That Thursday night, my eyes were straining from the fluorescent lights at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. I was worn out. That sort of exhaustion that originates from inside. It's not simply drowsiness. You know, I had been carrying around this soul weariness for months without really knowing why. Quasi, my husband, was standing next to me, grinning like he always did in public. Perfect gray tailored suit, leather briefcase in hand, the pricey fragrance I'd given him for his previous birthday hanging in the air. We were the epitome of black greatness to everyone in that terminal. The power couple, I, the devoted wife, and he, the accomplished executive, are sending him off before a significant business trip to Chicago. If only they were aware. My 6-year-old son Kenzo was by my side, his sweaty, tiny hand tightly gripping mine. My whole world. That night he was quieter than usual. To still keep in mind that Kenzo has always been perceptive, and one of those youngsters who would rather observe than take part. However, something different, a terror I couldn't identify, was in his eyes that night. Quasi pulled me in for a measured embrace and said, everything about him was calculated. "This meeting in Chicago is crucial, babe. I simply wasn't aware of it yet. I'll be back in no more than 3 days. This is where you hold the fort, isn't it? Maintain the fort." In response, I felt Kenzo tighten his grip on my hand, as if my life was just that, holding everything together while he built his empire. But I smiled like I always did because that's what was expected of me. "Of course, we'll be fine," I said. Before our son, Quasi knelt down, as he often did when he wanted to appear like the ideal father. He put both hands on Kenzo's shoulders. "And you, little man, you take care of Mama for me, all right?" Kenzo didn't answer. He only nodded, his gaze riveted on his father's face. That look, it was as if he were memorizing every detail, every feature, as if he were seeing her for the very last time. I should have noticed. I should have felt that something was amiss right then and there. But we never notice the signs when they come from the people we love, do we? We think we know the person, that nothing can surprise us. After 8 years of marriage, how foolish I was. Kenzo's forehead was kissed by Quasi, followed by mine. "I adore you both. I'll see you shortly." He turned, picked up his carry-on, and proceeded to the TSA checkpoint. As he vanished, Kenzo and I stood motionless in the midst of that throng of farewells and reunions. I inhaled deeply when I was finally unable to see Quasi anymore. "Baby, hurry up. Let's head back home." I sounded exhausted. All I wanted to do was return to our Buckhead home, take off the uncomfortable heels I had worn to pass for the part, and possibly watch TV until I fell asleep. Our footsteps reverberated on the polished floor as we began to move down the lengthy airport concourse. Kenzo was even quieter now, and I could feel the tension in his small body through the hand holding mine. "Everything okay, sweetie? You're very quiet today." He didn't answer immediately. We kept walking, passing the closed shops, the flight monitors, people rushing with rolling suitcases. It was only when we got near the exit, when the automatic glass doors were already in sight, that he stopped. He stopped so abruptly, I almost tripped. "Kenzo, what's wrong?" That's when he looked at me, and God, I will never forget that look. It was sheer horror, the kind of fear a 6-year-old shouldn't even know exists. "Mama," he whispered, his voice trembling, "we can't go back home." My heart did a strange flip in my chest. I crouched down in front of him, holding his little arms. "What do you mean, baby? Of course, we're going home. It's late. You need to sleep, don't you?" His voice came out louder, desperate. A few people turned their heads to look at us. He swallowed hard and continued, now in an urgent whisper, "Mama, please, we can't go back. Believe me this time, please." This time, those 2 words hurt because it was true. Weeks ago, Kenzo had told me he saw a strange car parked in front of our house. 3 consecutive nights in the same car. It was a coincidence, I told him. He claimed to have overheard his father discussing a permanent solution to the issue in his home office. A few days later, I advised him not to listen to adult talks because they were busy. I didn't believe him. And now he was pleading me, tears starting to form in those deep brown eyes. "Kenzo, I trust you this time. Explain to me what's going on. I spoke more steadily than I felt on the inside. He looked around as if frightened someone would hear him. Then, he tugged my arm, forcing me lean in even closer to him, and murmured in my ear, "This morning, really early, I woke up before everyone else. I heard Daddy in his office as I went to fetch some water. He was talking on the phone. Mama, he indicated that tonight, as we were sleeping, something horrible was going to happen, that when it occurred, he had to be far away, that we would no longer obstruct his path." My blood ran cold. "Kenzo, are you sure? Are you sure about what you heard?" He nodded desperately. "He said that someone was going to handle it. He said he was finally going to be free." His voice, Mama, the voice wasn't that of Daddy. It was different, scary. My first inclination was to refute it, to claim that Quasi would never do such, and that it was all in his head. But suddenly I remembered stuff. I had overlooked little things. 3 months earlier, Quasi increased his life insurance coverage, claiming it was merely a precaution for future generations' prosperity. Quasi insisted that I put everything in his name, including our joint savings account, the car, and the house in Buckhead. "Babe, it helps with taxes." When I indicated that I wanted to return to work, he almost became upset. "Ara, it's not required. I take care of everything." He was locked in his office when the odd calls came in. That chat I unintentionally overheard 2 weeks ago while I thought he was asleep, and the increasingly frequent excursions. He muttered into the telephone, "Yes, I am aware of the danger, but there is no other option. It must appear to be an accident." I persuaded myself at the time that it had to do with work and a risky investment. What if it wasn't, though? I made the most significant choice of my life, after seeing at Kenzo's frightened face, rolling tears, and shaking hands. "All right, I believe you, son." He experienced a brief but immediate sense of comfort. "So, what will we do now?" Excellent question. I had a racing mind. Returning home would be a death sentence if Kenzo was correct, and every cell in my body was beginning to scream that he was. Where should I go, though? Whose home? Every one of our pals was also Quasi's friend, belonging to the same social group. North Carolina was where my folks resided, and whether it was all a horrible miscommunication, or whether I was mistaken. What if it wasn't, though? I said, "Let's head to the car. However, we will not be entering the house. In order to be certain, we will observe from a distance." "All right." Kenzo gave a nod. We strolled to the parking deck after I grasped his hand once more. I could hear the blood flowing in my ears from how hard my heart was thumping. It seemed like every step was heavy. As we went outside, the crisp night air struck me. There were only a few cars strewn about in the dimly illuminated parking deck. Our silver SUV, which Quasi had insisted on purchasing last year, was parked in a corner. "A safe car for my family," he had stated. Secure. What a sour joke. We entered. I first buckled up Kenzo and then myself. It took me 3 attempts to turn on the ignition because my hands were shaking so much. "Mom," in the back seat, Kenzo's voice was quiet. "Yes, sweetheart, I appreciate your belief in me." In the rearview mirror, I glanced, hugging the dinosaur backpack he carried with him everywhere. He was curled up in the seat. "I'm always going to believe you, son, always." It dawned on me then that I ought to have said that earlier. I ought to have paid attention to him right away. I drove silently. I didn't head directly to our driveway. I chose to go around the neighborhood in a different way, locating a place on a side street that provided a glimpse of our house through the trees, without drawing too much attention to ourselves. I parked in a dark location between 2 enormous oaks. We could see our house from there. Everything appeared to be normal. The streetlights illuminated the pavement, our immaculate grass, the porch where Quasi and I enjoyed coffee on Sundays, the window of Kenzo's room with the superhero drapes he had picked out. At home, that's what I believed it to be. Anyway, I switched off the lights and the engine. Complete darkness, complete quiet, save for our breathing. "And we wait now," I muttered. Kenzo remained silent. His gaze remained fixated on the mansion as he continued to stare out the window. We waited, not realizing that everything I believed to be true about my life would fall apart in less than an hour. The time on the dashboard was 10:17 p.m. I was lurking on a dark street with my spying on my own house like we were in a bad movie, just as I began to wonder if I wasn't being utterly crazy. What sort of mother does this? How can a wife distrust her own husband? Of what precisely? I was unable to even construct the entire thought in my mind. It was too ridiculous. Quasi never yelled at Kenzo or held up a hand to me. He was a provider and a present father. Was he a devoted husband, though? I was taken by surprise when the question was asked. When was the last time he gave me a really loving glance? When did he genuinely want to know how my day went? When did he touch me in a way that wasn't automatic or mechanical? When was the last time I felt loved and not merely maintained? Look, Mama. I was startled out of my reverie by Kenzo's voice. My heart began to race. What did you observe? That vehicle. His finger led me in the right route. There was a car turning into our road. It wasn't just any automobile, though. The van was dark. No front plate or decals are visible. The windows were tinted. It was so black you couldn't tell who was inside. Too sluggish to be someone simply going through, the van slowed as it passed the residences. It resembled hunting. When the van came to a stop right in front of our house, my breath stuck in my throat. It can't be, I muttered. No, it cannot. However, it was. Both of the front doors opened. Two men came out. You could see they weren't technicians, delivery men, or anything else from a distance. Even in the dim lighting, they walked in a quiet, deliberate manner, while wearing dark clothing and hoods. They paused in front of our driveway gate and surveyed the area. My first reaction was to yell, "Dial 911, or take action." But I was immobilized and watched as if it were a nightmare from which I would never awaken. The tallest of the two reached inside his pocket. I thought he would force entry with a crowbar or some other equipment. It would constitute a theft. A robbery is something I could handle. I could make a report, call the police, and go on. But my world fell apart when he took something out of his pocket. A key. He had our house's key. Mom? Kenzo's voice wavered. They have a key, but how? I was unable to respond. I was too preoccupied with avoiding vomiting. As though he owned the building, the man unlocked the front door. Just unlocked it, no breaking, no force. Our residence was only accessible by 3 persons, quasi me, and the spare key in the desk drawer that was always locked in his home office. The 2 men broke into the house where I felt comfortable, where I had slept yesterday, and where I had prepared eggs and grits for Kenzo this morning. They failed to switch on the lights. Behind the drapes, I could see rays of flashlights dancing. They had a search in mind, or worst, they were getting ready for something. I'm not sure how long I watched, stuck in place. 5 minutes or 50 minutes could have passed. Time had become meaningless. That vision was all there was. With keys that only my spouse could have given them, 2 strangers were inside my home. Then I caught a whiff. I initially believed I was having hallucinations, but it became more intense. Pungent gasoline and a chemical odor. Kenzo said, "Mama, what's that smell?" That's when I noticed smoke. A tiny thread emerged from the living room window at first, followed by another from the kitchen window. Then I noticed the light. There is only one possible meaning for that ominous orange glow. Flames? No. Without giving it any thought, I exited the vehicle. No, no, no. I was yanked back by Kenzo's hand. "No, Mom, you're not allowed to go there." He was correct. I was aware. However, it was my home, my belongings, the pictures taken upon Kenzo's birth. I have my wedding gown in the closet. I have fixed Kenzo's drawings to the refrigerator. Before she died, my grandmother stitched this quilt. Everything is on fire. The fire spread quickly, incredibly quick. The living area was completely consumed in a matter of minutes. The fire reached Kenzo's room on the 2nd floor after licking the walls and smashing the windows. The siren began at that moment. The fire brigade must have been summoned by someone who noticed the smoke. Just before the first fire truck arrived, the dark vehicle drove off, lights off, and vanished around the corner. I could hardly stand because I was trembling so much. With his small face buried in my back, Kenzo was crying while giving me a hug from behind. I muttered that Kenzo was correct. "Baby, you were correct. You were correct. We would be asleep inside right now, not knowing, if I hadn't trusted him, and we'd gone home." I was unable to finish the thought, but those men would have. I watched my life crumble to ash as my legs failed and I collapsed on my knees in the midst of the pitch-black street. In my pocket, my phone began to vibrate. I lifted it up with shaky hands. Quasi sent the SMS. "I just landed, sweetie. I hope Kenzo and you are getting enough sleep. I adore you all. I'll see you shortly." I read the message 3 times, twice, and once. Each and every word was a knife. All of the heart emojis were toxic. He was aware. He was aware, of course. He hired individuals to kill us and burn us alive while we slept, while he was in another state creating his ideal alibi. Then, he would return as the sorrowful father, the heartbroken spouse. At the funeral, he would cry, get condolences, and keep everything: the bank accounts, the land, and the life insurance. Kenzo overheard him say that over the phone. I'll be free at last. Get away from me. Without his son, the nausea hit hard. I turned around and puked on the curb, along with whatever delusion I still had about my marriage. Everything in my stomach spilled out. I looked at Kenzo and used my sleeve to wipe my mouth when I was finally able to stop. He watched the home burn while he sat on the sidewalk and held his knees. His face was streaming with tears, yet he had stopped crying. He merely observed that expression and the awfully early realization that those who ought to love you can also wish to harm. You shouldn't be present in a sick. I took a seat next to him and gave him a firm embrace. I muttered, "I'm sorry," into his hair. He clung to me as though I were the only thing that was stable in a world that had completely collapsed, saying, "I'm sorry for not believing you sooner. I'm sorry for everything." Perhaps I was. Mama, what are we going to do now? Wasn't it the crucial question? When you find out that the man who vowed to love and protect you really wants you dead, what do you do? Home was out of our reach. There was no longer even a home. We were unable to visit the police. It was just me and a 6-year-old's word against Quasi's solid alibi. We were unable to see family or friends. I would make things up because everyone would think I was insane from the shock of the fire. And Quasi was free, flying back at that same moment, most likely rehearsing the expression of dismay and shock he would use upon learning of the catastrophe. We required assistance. Assistance from someone Quasi didn't know, someone who could relate. Someone who experienced what? Plot and attempted murder. At that moment, I recalled that I had received a card from my father, Grandpa Langston, before to his death 2 years ago. It was a difficult day immediately following his cancer diagnosis. The card bore the name of Zunara Oper, a lawyer, and a phone number. He invited me to his hospital room, grasped my hand, and said, "Ira, I don't trust that husband of yours. Never have. If one day you need help, real help, find this person." I was offended at the time. How could my father not have faith in me? Quasi, who paid for the best doctors, visited him in the hospital, and showed him such care. But I finally understood now. My father left me a way out after he saw something I wouldn't see. I grabbed my phone once more. 23% of the battery was charged. I had to decide quickly. Do you recall the card my grandfather gave me? Kenzo, the wallet I carried around. He gave a nod. I'll give the person on it a call. She will assist us. That's what I hoped. I dialed the phone with shaking fingers. 4 rings, 3 rings. Just as it was about to go to voicemail, a firm yet raspy female voice said, "Hello, Attorney Okafor speaking. Miss Alopper, my name is Ira Vance. You don't know me, but my father was Langston Vance. He gave me your number. I'm in need of assistance." Not good. A pause occurred. "I was then informed about you by Ira Langston. You're where?" "Just now. My house caught fire. My spouse, son, and I are on the street. My spouse attempted to murder us." Another longer pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, more urgent. "Are you safe right now? Can you drive?" "Yes." "Then write down this address." Attorney Zuna's office was in a historic brick building in the lovely Auburn district, the kind of location you pass by without noticing. It had a little faded plaque instead of a gaudy placard. Z. Legal advice. Oper. It was almost midnight when I parked in front. Only a few streetlights were on, and the street was empty. Weary from crying, Kenzo had slept off in the back seat throughout the drive. He had to be carried by me. The door opened before I pressed the bell. There was a woman, with her gray hair tucked back in a bun, and her reading glasses dangling from a chain. She must have been around 60 years old, like she had just been awakened. She was dressed simply in jeans and a blouse, but her eyes were sharp, scrutinizing every aspect of Kenzo and me. "Yes, Ira, hurry up and enter." I did what I was told. She used 3 separate deadbolts to secure the door after us. The fragrance of strong coffee and dusty books filled the workplace. Old cabinets, a table piled high with papers, and piles of files everywhere. She said, "Put the boy on the sofa over there. The chair has a blanket on it." I gently placed Kenzo down. I took care of him. His face remained smeared with tears as he continued to sleep. Coffee. She made an offer. She was pouring 2 cups already, and I was about to say no. She gestured to the chair in front of her desk and gave me one. "Sit down and tell me everything from the beginning. Leave nothing out," I said. I told her about the men with the keys, the Firequaz's trip, Kenzo's whisper at the airport, and the choice to hide and keep an eye on the property. Quasi pretended to be concerned in his text, even though he knew we ought to be dead. I wasn't interrupted once by Attorney Zuna. with her eyes focused on me and her fingers intertwined beneath her chin. She simply listened. She remained silent for a long time after I was done. Your father asked me to look out for you if something like this happened, she concluded. Langston was an extremely intelligent man. He saw aspects of your husband that you were unable to acknowledge. It was painful, but it was the truth. He was aware that Quasi could accomplish this. He had a suspicion that Quasi was dangerous, that he was not who he claimed to be, and that he had married you for access. She sipped her coffee. I have few stuff left by Langston, documents and details about Quasi and you. She got up and went to a locked cabinet, but I didn't think I'd ever need them. After taking out a heavy folder, she put it back on the table between us. 3 years ago, your father secretly engaged a private investigator to look into Quasi's business activities. My heart grew smaller. What did they discover? Obligations, mostly a lot of gaming debt. Ayera, your husband has a major issue. He owes underground casinos and loan sharks, extremely harmful individuals. She opened the folder containing reports, pictures, and bank statements. His companies had been insolvent for the past 2 years. He has been filling in the gaps with the money from your mother's legacy, but it has nearly completely dried up. It was like if someone had punched me in the gut. The inheritance of my mother, we were married, so I put the $150,000 she left me in a joint account. Babe, what's mine is yours. He spent every last penny of it. She flipped a page. Additionally, the lenders are now collecting interest. Nearly $500,000 is owed by Quasi. People like that don't bargain. Either she doesn't need to finish the sentence, or he pays. I don't have that money, though. We don't possess it. What is the purpose of the life insurance? She asked plainly. Don't you have a $2.5 million life insurance policy? Remember how your father insisted on it when you were married? Claimed that safeguarding you and your future grandkids was crucial. I recalled that Quasi accepted it even if he thought it was excessive at the time. I didn't question it. And if I died in an accident, I never considered. So I carried on with the logic while feeling sick to my stomach. After paying the debts and receiving the $2.5 million, Quasi would be set free. Just that Zunera, the lawyer, closed the file. And the ideal type of accident is a fire. Arson is difficult to prove if done well, difficult to track down. He also has the ideal alibi. When it occurred, he was in a different state. However, I survived. Kenzo didn't either, and he is still unaware of that. Something clicked in my mind when she said that. You're saying that for the time being, we should let him believe the strategy worked. She bent over. If you arrive now, Ayera, it will be his word against yours. Other than the account of a 6-year-old boy who might have misinterpreted a conversation, do you have any evidence, witnesses, or anything else? I had nothing, just the dread in my son's eyes and the conviction in my heart. What about the men who set the home on fire? Though, will the cops not look into it? They will, and they might think it was an accident if they don't have any leads. Gas leaks, defective wiring, anything. Those guys are experts. Ayera, they don't leave any traces. She let out a sigh. This was really carefully prepared by Quasi. The only thing that went wrong with his strategy was that I trusted him, and Kenzo paid attention. I turned to see my son dozing out on the couch. Despite his innocence and little size, he had saved our lives. What should I do then? I can't simply vanish. Everything in the house burned, including my cards and ID. I'm broke. There is nowhere for me to go. You have me, Lawyer Zunara remarked. Additionally, Quasi is unaware of what you own. What? She grinned. I could see why my father trusted her with her icy smile. The reality? It's time to demonstrate it. Tomorrow, Quasi will be back. He will act as though he is heartbroken. He'll perform for the neighbors and the police. He'll search for the bodies and know something went wrong if he doesn't discover them. Yes, but we'll have advanced 10 stages by then. What she meant was not entirely clear to me, but I was too tired to think, too tired to ask questions. I was having trouble keeping my eyes open. Tonight, she determined, you and the boy will stay here. In the back is a tiny room. It has a bed, but it's not the Ritz. We will plan the following moves tomorrow. Why are you acting in this way, Attorney Zhu? Why so much assistance? She fell silent for a while, lost in some memory, staring at somewhere beyond me. Long ago, when my own husband attempted to kill me, Langston came to my rescue. Her eyes returned to mine. Ayera, I completely understand how you're feeling right now. Fear, disbelief, and betrayal. And I assured your father that I would be available if you needed me. I take joy in repaying that debt. I forced myself to swallow the tears that threatened to spill. I'm grateful. Don't thank me just yet. The game is only getting started. Although it felt like only 3 minutes, I slept for perhaps 3 hours. Kenzo scaredly shook me as I woke up and asked where we were. It took me a few seconds to remember, and then, like a bucket of freezing water, reality hit me. My spouse attempted to murder me. That was strange, bizarre, like a nightmare I could wake up from at any point, regardless of how many times I told myself that. However, it wasn't, and that was confirmed by the morning news. At 7 in the morning, Attorney Zuna rapped on the door of the tiny chamber. Activate Channel 2 on the television. It was there. The news is breaking. A luxurious home in Buckhead is destroyed by a massive fire. The family's fate is unclear. The house, or what was remained of it, was shown. Only charred walls and smoldering debris. Firefighters are continuing at work, picking through the rubble. Then, in the middle of the mayhem, they showed Trump sort of stepping out of an Uber with a look I recognized. The same one he used to practice key speeches in front of the mirror. Horror was measured by calculating worry. For heaven's sake, tell me my son and wife weren't in there. He yelled at the police, the camera, and everybody else who would listen. The reporter clarified that he had just landed and arrived at the site while on a business trip. With that somber news anchor voice, she told the story of a frantic husband looking for his lost family. Beside me, I felt Kenzo shrink. He's telling lies, my son muttered. He is feigning concern. He was, too. If you looked closely, you might see it. Before he broke down in tears, he examined the camera angles. Even with his hands covering his face, his eyes were dry. He asked the fire chief, "Did you find the bodies yet?" With a sense of urgency that betrayed a need for confirmation rather than a desire to hold on to optimism. He wanted to confirm our demise. Zunera, the lawyer, switched off the television. All day, he will search for the Batas. He will become suspicious if he is unable to locate them. We may have 24 hours before he discovers you've gotten away. After that, he will become anxious. Additionally, panicked people make blunders. She took a seat on the bed's edge. I need you to tell me, are you familiar with the key to Quasi's office safe? I paused to reflect. I am aware of that. It is the day he was born. It's too clear, but it works. It is where he maintains crucial paperwork. I believe so. I never really listened if he is foolish enough to have retained any information connecting him to the guys he hired. We must get those records. However, how? There are cops everywhere in the house now. It will last for several hours. However, we can enter the hotel at night, as he won't want to sleep in a burned shell. I gave her a crazy-eyed look. Are you saying that I should break into my own home? If you live there, technically it's not breaking and entering. She gave another icy smile. Furthermore, we'll require concrete proof evidence that Quasi premeditated this. I'll accompany you, Kenzo stated abruptly. No, baby, you're staying here. I'm aware of Daddy's hiding places, Mama. His voice was quiet yet resolute. You are unfamiliar with some places. I watch, so I know. I watch all the time. He did observe. Everyone assumed my quiet son was bashful, but he was actually quite perceptive. I missed things that he saw. He's correct. Lawyer Zanara gave a nod. Children notice things that adults overlook. If something is concealed, he will know where to search. The idea didn't sit well with me. I knew we needed proof, and time was running out, but I also didn't want to put Kenzo in risk once more. The day went by slowly. We remained cooped up at the office, watching Quasi's theater performance and the news. He told the identical narrative in interviews with 3 different channels. A distraught entrepreneur looking for his family, a father's wish, the pain of ignorance, lies, all falsehoods. Using neighborhood security cameras, which Zuna gained access to via a contact, we observed Quasi being brought to the precinct so he could make a statement. We witnessed him come back and spend hours standing in front of the demolished house, conversing with the cops, neighbors, and anyone else who happened to pass by. Finally, as the sun began to drop, we watched him get into a car and drive off. Attorney Zunara then handed me gloves, dark clothing, and a little flashlight. Did the same with Kenzo. We appeared to be robbers planning a break, and that was, in a sense, precisely what it was. We didn't enter through the front, but we drove quietly to the neighborhood's edge. Zunera was aware of a passageway in the rear, where there were no cameras and the wall was lower. She discussed the advantages of having represented the developer during his divorce. We climbed the wall. Well, I climbed with her. Kenzo was lifted over to the opposite side. It was gloomy. There was still a strong smell of smoke. 20 minutes, Zunra muttered. Enter, obtain what you require, leave, I'll remain here and observe. We headed to the home after I grasped Kenzo's hand. Perhaps what remained of it. The kitchen door at the back was half charred, but it was still open. We went inside. God, it was completely destroyed. Charred walls, ceiling partially fallen, the stench of ash and chemicals. Everything that was my life was ruined. But we didn't have time to mourn. The office, I muttered to Kenzo. Where is it? He guided me, passing through the shattered living room, proceeding up the dangerous steps of the staircase. The second story housed Quas's office, which amazingly hadn't burnt as much as the others. Despite the jammed door, I was able to pry it open. Behind a burned-out artwork, the safe was embedded in the wall. I entered the date of Quasi's birth. Peep, green light, open. There were documents, an outdated burner phone, and a large amount of cash, likely for illicit payments. Take it all. From the opposite side of the room came Kenzo's voice. Look here, Mom. He was pointing to a hiding spot behind a loose floorboard that I had no idea existed. I raised the board. It included an envelope, a black notebook, and another phone. In a hurry, I packed everything into the backpack I had brought. Let's move quickly. We heard conversations downstairs when we were almost at the entrance. Are you certain that no one is present? Yes, the location has already been released by the police. We're just making sure. My blood turned to ice. I gave Kenzo a glance. He was white. We were unable to descend. Our only way out was blocked by whoever it was. Kenzo and I crammed ourselves into the office closet when I grabbed him. I was certain they would hear us since my heart was racing. I could see beams of flashlights going up the stairs through the slat in the closet door. Not police, but two men. The voices were familiar to me. The men who had started the fire were the same ones. One of them said, "The boss told me to check if the job was finished." Southern drawl, deep voice. They haven't found any bodies yet, apparently. Not possible. Nothing would remain because the fire was so hot. They may have taken them to the morgue already. Better be certain. Examine the rooms. I heard two sets of footsteps, one heading toward the master bedroom, and the other toward us. The door to the office opened. Kenzo gave me a painful squeeze on my hand. To avoid making a sound, I bit my lip. The man came in, scanning the room with his flashlight. On the open safe, it came to a stop. Come take a look at this, Marcus. The other man showed up. What took place? The safe is open. When we left, it wasn't like that. Are you certain? Of course. Not even the safe was touched by us. Simply lit it ablaze and walked away. Tense, quiet, Marcus came to the conclusion that someone was present. The dust surrounding it has been stirred recently. I believe it was the police. Officers don't steal money. Look, there are little footsteps. He aimed the spotlight at the ground. Too little to be an adult. I felt sick to my stomach. A child. The first man spoke gently. Do you think? I believe we have an issue. Marcus reached into his pocket and took out a phone. I'm going to phone the boss. He must be aware. I couldn't let it happen. We may still be alive. If he phoned Quasi and informed him that someone had been there. What could I do, though? My 6-year-old and I were trapped and unarmed in a closet. I heard the cry at that moment. It was external. A loud, terrified female scream. What on earth was that? Then Marcus ran down the steps. The other man trailed behind. I didn't squander time. I grabbed Kenzo and bolted. I nearly fell down the steps because I was moving so quickly. The rear door was ajar. That must have been how they got in. We dashed towards the wall. Zuna was there, breathing heavily. As I assisted her in jumping the wall, I questioned, "Was that you who screamed?" "Yes," I said, pointing to the backpack. "I needed to get them out of there." "Did it work?" "I got at everything." 2 blocks away, we hurried to where her car was parked. Only when we were inside, doors locked, engine running, and driving away, could I breathe. "Those men saw that someone touched the safe," I replied. "They will tell Quasi. Great." I gave her a strange look. "What do you mean by excellent?" "He will now be aware of your existence. He'll be aware that you have proof. He will become anxious." As she drove, she grinned. "Additionally, those who are in a panic act foolishly." I was too tired to disagree, although I'm not sure whether I agreed with her reasoning. We emptied the backpack onto the desk back at the workplace. Money, phones, documents, and the black notebook. Sonara took the notebook first, opened it, and began reading. Her smile grew larger as she read more. "Bingo," she whispered. "What is it? Is your husband meticulous, or just dumb?" "Probably both." She turned the notebook toward me. "Look at this. Dates, amounts, names. He documented every cent he borrowed from whom, and when he had to pay. He even had notes about conversations with the loan sharks." I scanned the pages. Everything was there. every debt, every threat he received. And then, on the last pages, final solution. Ira's life insurance 2.5. Accident has to look natural. Contact Marcus. Service $50,000. Half upfront. Date Novi 21. That was today. Or rather, it was yesterday. He wrote everything down. I whispered, incredulous. Why would anyone do that? Insurance, explained Zuna. If something went wrong, he could use this as leverage against the guys he hired. Prove they were involved, too. She picked up one of the phones. And I bet on these burners there's even more evidence. Texts, calls. It took all night to examine everything. The phones were password protected, but Zanira had a tech guy contact who managed to unlock them. And there it all was. Messages between Quasi and Marcus. Need it to be a day I'm traveling. Solid alibi. Has to look accidental. Fire is good. Hard to trace. And the kid, Marcus had asked, can't leave anyone behind either. Quasi had written coldly about killing our son, as if it were a minor detail, an inconvenience to be solved. I felt hate growing inside me, a cold, sharp hate. I was no longer the woman who had married believing she had found love. I was a mother protecting her child, and mothers are dangerous when their children are threatened. Is this enough to arrest him? Enough to arrest, convict, and throw away the key? Zuna said in response to my question, but we need to do it right. If we hand this to the wrong police, Quasi has enough money and connections to make it disappear, or worse, to make you disappear. So, what do we do? She thought for a moment. I know an honest detective. Detective Hightower, homicide, incorruptible. If we present the case to him with all this proof, Quasi has nowhere to run. When tomorrow morning, but before that, she looked at her phone. Your husband has already tried to call you 7 times in the last hour and sent 15 texts. I picked up my phone. It was on silent, but the screen lit up with notification after notification. Ira, for God's sake, where are you? Babe, I'm desperate. Please answer me. Police said they didn't find your body. Where are you? Are you hurt? Ira, answer me. And the most recent one sent 5 minutes ago. I know you're alive, and I know you took the things from the safe. We need to talk. Urgent. The mask had fallen. He knows, I said. Perfect. Answer him. What? Are you crazy? Answer him. Tell him you want to meet him in a public place tomorrow morning. Why? Zuna smiled. That smile I learned to fear and admire at the same time, because we're going to give him a chance to hang himself. I typed the response with shaking fingers. Centennial Olympic Park near the fountain. Tomorrow 10 a.m. Come alone. Quasi's reply came in seconds. I'll be there, Ara. We need to talk. Things aren't how you think. Things aren't how you think. As if I were the crazy one in the story. As if I hadn't seen 2 men torching my house with my own keys. Perfect, said Zuna. Tomorrow morning you meet him, but you won't be alone. She explained the plan. It was risky, maybe insane, but it could work. Detective Hightower agreed to help when she called and explained the situation. He would put plainclothes officers in the park, wiretaps, cameras. All we needed was to make Quasi confess. He's never going to confess knowing he might be recorded, I argued. He doesn't need to confess with words, she replied. He just needs to act, and desperate men always act. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the meeting, what I would say, how I would look into the eyes of the man who tried to kill me and pretend normally. Kenzo slept beside me, finally at peace after days of terror. At least one of us could rest. At 9:30 the next morning, we were positioned, me sitting on a bench in Centennial Park wearing a jacket with a built-in wire. Kenzo safe in the office with Zunera, watching everything through a feed the police set up. Detective Hightower and his team scattered around the park disguised as tourists, hot dog vendors, people walking dogs, and then I saw Quasi. He showed up promptly at 10 a.m. He wore wrinkled clothes, probably the same from yesterday, deep dark circles under his eyes, unshaven beard. For the first time since I met him, he looked human, vulnerable, but I knew the truth. He saw me and practically ran over. Ira, thank God you're okay. He tried to hug me. I stepped back. Don't touch me. The mask slipped for a second. I saw rage in his eyes before he reverted to expressing concern. Babe, I know you're scared, but you have to listen to me. Listen to you. Listen to you say what, Quasi? That it was all a mistake. That the men who burned our house with our keys were just burglars. He blinked, calculating. You saw. I saw everything. I was there. Kenzo and I saw everything. He went pale. He looked around nervously. Not here. Let's go somewhere private. I'm not going anywhere with you. I kept my voice steady even though my heart was racing. Talk here now. Why did you try to kill me? I didn't. It wasn't like that. He ran a hand through his hair. Yera, don't you understand? I'm in trouble. I owe a lot of money to very dangerous people. They threatened you. They threatened Kenzo. So, you decided to kill us instead. What logic is that? No, I was going to get you out of the country. With the insurance money, we could start over somewhere else, far from those guys. It was a lie so blatant, I almost laughed. You're talking about the insurance that only pays out if I die. He froze. He realized the mistake. Era. He changed tactics. His voice became threatening. You took things from my safe. I need you to give them back now. The black notebook, the evidence that you planned everything. You don't understand what you're doing. If you give that to the police, I go down. And if I go down, the guys I owe will come after you. Either way, you're not safe. But at least it won't be you trying to kill me. The rage finally exploded. You were always so naive. You think I married you. Why? For love. You were a spoiled girl with daddy's money. It was just for that. It hurt, even knowing it was true. It hurt to hear it. And Kenzo, our son, also just for interest. The Brett, he spat the words. He was always weird, too quiet, watching everything. Freak kid. And there was the true hate. It wasn't just for money. He truly despised us. That's when I heard Detective Haitoto's voice in my ear. We have enough. Move in, team. Suddenly, the tourists stood up. The vendors abandoned their carts. Everyone converged on Quasi with badges in hand. Quasi Vance, you are under arrest. His face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, rage, fear, and finally acceptance. He had lost, but before they could cuff him, he did something no one expected. He ran. He sprinted through the park, knocking people over, jumping benches. The police went after him, but he had a head start and was running in my direction. I didn't have time to react. He grabbed me, pulled something from his waistband, a knife, and pressed it against my neck. Nobody moves, or I kill her, he yelled, his voice unintelligible. Detective Hightower halted 10 feet away and raised his hands, saying, Quasi, calm down. I swear I'll kill her. You're not required to do this. I do, of course. Everything was damaged by her. Everything. The blade pressed harder. I felt a trickle of blood run down. My brain went into panic mode. But then I remembered Kenzo, my son, watching everything. I couldn't let him see me die. Quasi, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. You're not going to do this. Don't tell me what I am or am not going to do. You're not going to do it because you're a coward. You always have been. I turned my head slightly, looking him in the eyes. Cowards don't kill while looking someone in the eye. They hire other people. And even at that, you failed. The knife trembled in his hand. And in that second of hesitation, something happened. A shot, not to kill, to incapacitate. A sniper I hadn't even seen hit Quasi's hand. The knife dropped. He screamed in pain. And in seconds, he was on the ground, handcuffed, surrounded by officers. I fell to my knees, shaking. Detective Haitoto helped me up. It's okay. It's over. But it didn't feel over. Nothing felt real. I watched Quasi being dragged to the squad car. He was screaming, kicking, threatening. This doesn't end here, Ara. You're going to pay. You're going to pay. Empty. All his threats were empty now. Quasi's trial was fast. With all the evidence, the notebook, the phones, the recordings of our meeting, the testimony of the men he hired, who cut a plea deal, there was no defense. They tried to plead temporary insanity, tried to say he was coerced by the loan sharks, tried everything. It didn't work. Quasi was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, attempted murder, arson, insurance fraud. The list was long. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't want to see his face ever again. But Zuna went. She sent me a text when the verdict came down. Justice is served. Justice. The words seemed strange because it didn't seem fair that 8 years of my life had been a lie. It didn't seem fair that my son had to grow up knowing his own father wanted to kill him. But at least we were alive and free. In the following months, I had to rebuild everything. Literally everything. Documents, identity, bank account, home. I got access to the home insurance money. Ironic since Quasi had burned it to get a different insurance payout. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to start over. Zanira helped me with all the paperwork. More than that, she became a friend. Maybe the first true friend I ever had. Your father knew I was going to need you one day, I told her one afternoon. Drinking tea in the new apartment I rented in Dakar. How did he know about Quasi? A father's intuition. She smiled. Or maybe he saw things that you, being in love, didn't want to see. Little signs. The the way Quasi looked at your family's money, how he asked about inheritances, how irritated he got when you talked about working. She was right. The signs were always there. I was the one who chose to ignore them. Kenzo was going to therapy. At first he didn't want to talk about what happened, but over time, slowly, he began to open up. The therapist said he was resilient. Children are stronger than we imagine. But even strong, he had nightmares, woke up screaming, saying there was fire, that he couldn't get out, that his daddy was coming. On those nights, I stayed with him, held him, hummed the gospel songs I sang to him when he was a baby, and slowly he would go back to sleep. Mama, he asked me one night, a few months after the trial, do you still love Daddy? I was taken aback by the inquiry. Why do you ask that? Because he was bad, really bad, but he's still my daddy, and I don't know if it's wrong to miss him sometimes. My heart broke. I pulled him into a tight hug. It's not wrong, baby. He is your dad. And the part of him you knew, the part that played catch with you, that took you to the park, that part felt real, or at least you believed it was, and there's no problem missing that. But he tried to hurt us. He tried, and that was horrible and unforgivable. But your feelings are yours. You can miss the dad you thought you had and still be angry about what he did. Both things can exist together. He stayed quiet for a while, then whispered, I saved you. Right, Mama. You kept us safe. You saved yourself, and you saved me. You are my hero, Kenzo. He smiled, a small smile, but genuine. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Not immediately, not magically, but eventually I started working again, something Quasi never allowed. I got a job at a nonprofit in Atlanta that helped women victims of domestic violence. It seemed appropriate. I understood what they were going through. The fear, the shame, the feeling that somehow it was their fault. And I could say from my heart, it is not your fault. It never was. Attorney Zuna offered me a partnership in her firm a year later. You have talent for this and passion. It would be a waste not to use it. I accepted. I went back to school, did an accelerated law program, passed the Georgia bar exam. It wasn't easy. Going back to books at 34 is challenging, but I passed. I became an attorney, specialized in family law and domestic violence cases. I used the pain to help other people, and in some way that helped heal my own pain. 3 years after the fire, we moved into a real house. Small, simple, but ours. Kenzo chose his own room, painted the walls blue, but no superheroes this time. Mama, I'm grown now. He filled it with posters of black astronauts and scientists. When I grow up, I'm going to be an engineer, he announced. Or an architect. Haven't decided yet. I laughed. You can be both. Seriously, you can do that. You can do anything you want, son. And I believed that because we had survived the impossible. What was a little ambition compared to that? Every now and then I thought about Quasi, mostly when I signed the divorce papers, which he contested, of course, but lost, or when I saw news about him in prison. Apparently, he wasn't adapting well. I felt pity, not raged sometimes, but mostly nothing. He had become irrelevant, a footnote in my history, not the main chapter. Life went on. Kenzo grew. I grew with him. I learned to trust again. Not blindly, never blindly again, but with wisdom. I learned that red flags exist for a reason, that listening to your intuition isn't paranoia, and I learned that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who can hurt us the most. But I also learned that we can survive that and even grow. Today marks 5 years since that night at the airport, 5 years since Kenzo whispered, "Don't go back home," and changed our lives forever. I'm sitting on the porch of our house drinking coffee. Kenzo, now 11, is in the living room doing homework. It's Saturday, but he likes to get ahead on his work. Mama, he shouts. Can I go to Malek's house after lunch? You can, but be back before 6. Okay. I smile at my coffee. He has friends now, good friends. He stopped being that quiet, scared boy. He's still observant, always will be. But he also laughs, plays, lives like every child should live. My phone rings. It's Zu, or rather Auntie Z. We dropped the formalities a long time ago. Good morning. You up early today? I have news, she says. I can hear the smile in her voice. Remember that case we took last month, Mrs. Johnson? I remember, 40 years old, abusive husband, 3 kids, no money to leave. We did it. Protection order granted. She and the kids are already in the shelter safe. I close my eyes, feeling that warmth in my chest. That's good. That's really good. That's why we do this. right? For these moments, yes, we hang up and I stay there thinking about how many women we've managed to help over these years. How many children we saved. Not in such a dramatic way as Kenzo and I were saved, but saved nonetheless from toxic relationships, from abuse, from dead-end situations. We transformed our tragedy into purpose. Mama Kenzo appears at the screen door. Can I ask you something? Always. He sits in the chair next to me. He's bigger now, growing too fast for my liking. Soon he'll be taller than me. Are you happy? The question takes me by surprise. I am. Why do you ask? He shrugs. Just wanted to know. Because of everything that happened. I thought maybe you'd stay sad forever. I take his hand. It's not so tiny anymore. I was sad for a while. Yes. And I still get sad sometimes when I remember. But I'm also happy because I have you. I have a job I love. I have real friends. I have a life that I chose, not that someone chose for me. And Daddy, did you forgive him? That one is harder. I don't know if I forgave him. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or saying everything is okay. Maybe it's more like letting go, not carrying that weight anymore. And in that sense, yes, I think I made it. He nods, processing. I think me, too. I don't think about him much. Just sometimes when I remember how it was before, but then I remember that wasn't real, and it gets easier. Such wisdom for an 11-year-old. But Kenzo was never an ordinary child. He grew up too fast, saw too many things, but he survived. And more than that, he flourished. I love you so much. You know that, I say, hugging him. I know. Love you too, Mama. He hugs me back, then pulls away. Can I go back to homework? Only have math left. Go ahead. He goes back inside and I stay there on the porch watching the sunrise in the Georgia sky. I think about how strange life is. 5 years ago I was losing everything or thinking I was the house, the marriage, the security, but actually I was gaining something more important. Freedom. Freedom to be myself, to make my own decisions, to build a life based on truth, not pretty lies. And yes, it hurts. Sometimes it still hurts. There are nights I wake up sweating, dreaming of fire. There are days I see a man from afar who looks like Quasi, and my heart races. Trauma doesn't disappear completely. We learn to live with it. But we also learn that we are stronger than we imagine, that we can survive the unimaginable, that we can rebuild from the ashes. Literally, in my case, my phone vibrates again. A message from the support group I coordinate for survivors. Thank you for the meeting yesterday. For the first time, I felt like I'm not alone. I reply, you never were, and you never will be. Together, we are in this. I act in this way because of these signals, because I understand what it's like to feel trapped and alone with no way out. I also understand what it's like to find a helping hand when you need it most. Like my father gave me when he left me Zuna's card. Similar to what Zunara gave me when she adopted me. Similar to what Kenzo offered me when he had the guts to speak up. Even though they are so tiny, it's not only us who save ourselves. We are dependent on one another. I now return the favor. I reach out to other women in my position, and I raise them. The sun has now fully risen. A fresh day, a fresh opportunity. I rise and enter the house. Kenzo is focusing on the numbers at the table. I walk up to him and kiss the top of his head, without his noticing. He complains, Mama, yet he's grinning. Here, I'm attempting to focus. I apologize. I won't annoy you any longer. To begin lunch, I head to the kitchen. Something easy. Beef sauce over spaghetti. Kenzo's best friend. He's singing in the living room as I stir the sauce, humming as he completes his arithmetic homework. A young boy who saw his father arrested, lost his house, and witnessed an attempted murder is humming. I don't know what resilience is if that isn't it. It also gives me hope. I hope we can survive anything life throws at us. We are able to prevail. We may even experience joy once more. We are stronger and wiser now, but not in the same way as previously. The timer on the oven beeps. I switch it off and begin plating the food. The dinner is ready, Kenzo, like he always does. When there's food, he comes running. He sits at the table with that big smile. For dessert. What? Ice cream? I can do that while I sleep if you finish your meal first. We chuckle. We consume food. We discuss the week, the weekend plans, and the science project he is working on at school. Normal life, normal things. And after all, it's lovely. Regaining that normalcy is lovely. Kenzo visits his friend's place after lunch. I clean the house, do the dishes, and respond to some emails for business. Routine. Fantastic. Routine that is boring. I giggle when Kenzo returns in the afternoon and we watch a stupid animated film together. He laments that it's childish, but he also finds it funny. And even though he protests that he's too big for that, he gives me a strong hug as it gets dark and I tuck him in. Mom, indeed. For what, sweetie? For having faith in me at the airport that day. If you didn't think I was real, however, I trusted you. I have faith in you. Grinning, he takes a seat in the bed. Mama, good night. Good night, my hero. I turn off the light, close the door, and for the first time in 5 years, I don't feel terrified of tomorrow because no matter what comes, I know we will face it together, and we shall survive like we always survived. Did you enjoy the narrative? And from which city are you listening? Let's get together in the comments. To help me continue to provide more stories like this, please send me a big thank you if you like the story. I sincerely appreciate your kind support. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the narrative. 2 brand new life stories that I strongly suggest are displayed on the screen. My channel has a ton more content. Remember to subscribe. See you in the next chapter of your life. With respect and affection,